Brian.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Welcome, friends. It is great to have you here at Columbia Presbyterian Church. My name is Brian Craker. I serve as the interim administrative pastor here at Columbia, and it is truly an honor to be able to host you. Last time we were up for hosting, Paul, I think we talked about, it was about 5 years ago, we were in the midst of a major remodel, so we had to turn it down at that time. But it's great to be able to have you all here today. Heard many of you remarking about the facility as you were walking in, and yes, it's changed just slightly since you were here, since we had you all here last. The worship space has nearly been doubled in size. Where you see the two long beams here along the top used to be the old sanctuary, just a little bit beyond that, and it's been pushed out. Seating capacity has been increased significantly. And there's a theme within our building. If you notice with the stained glass, there's actually stained glass behind you, where you see the fires of Pentecost coming down and mixing with the waters of baptism. You'll notice the baptismal font that is as you passed as you came in, being situated directly below the fires of Pentecost. And then on both sides, you see it's a little different, unique ones on each side, but you see the waters of baptism moving to the fields and producing the fields of harvest and the fruit of the Spirit that is then born out into the world. There was a lot more that happened here, though, than just a facility upgrade and remodel. It was more of a vision, and that is what has been driving Columbia Presbyterian for a number of years now. It has been an elder-driven vision of understanding where God has positioned us here in Clark County, and different visions of what we are supposed to be doing to reach out in the name of Christ into our community. And you'll begin to hear a little bit of how that's being done from Pastors Geordie and Pastors Matt. But one of the wonderful things about this facility is the fact that with the upgrades that we did and the increase in the size, there was also a commitment to make sure that this facility was open for use from different pieces or different organizations within the community, and it was being able to be reached out to the community. And that's what's been happening. This facility is in use every single day, and we have a number of different groups that use it and a lot of different mission work that happens in this building out into Clark County. And that's the greater vision of what we understood as the purpose for why we are here as a church family and why God is using us.
Anyway, my name is Geordie Ziegler, and I say to the congregation every Sunday, I get to be one of the pastors here at Columbia. It's a true privilege. Pastor Fitz, our lead pastor, is not here with us this weekend. He is in Haiti, flew there last night. We'll be there for the next 10 or 11 days, and so he's visiting and serving along with a medical team as part of one of our missionaries, a couple that we support, and is doing some amazing work in Haiti. I think the best way for us to introduce Columbia to you is to share our vision with you. It's a vision which we believe is from God, and it's a vision that affects and informs everything we do here at every level. I think I have a slide for that. But our vision is three things. It's to connect across generations, it's to develop disciple makers, and to send our people to bless the world. If you hold it together, you could say collectively our desire is to be a family of intergenerational, missional disciple makers. Now, in order for that vision to be more than a pipe dream, we have gathered a team for each of those pieces of the vision to sort of be stewards of those. And so in the time that Matt and I have, we just want to share a little bit about each of those three pieces. I'll do the disciple-making one, and Matt's going to do the others. About 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, our session made a hard decision related to disciple making. We observed that many of the people who'd been involved in our church activities for decades were still not at all confident in helping another person grow in their faith. And we had to admit that programs and small groups do not make disciples. Disciples make disciples. And most of our people had convinced themselves that making disciples was actually somebody else's job, not their job. We knew there had to be a better way than the way that we weren't doing it already, but we needed help. I had a doctorate in theology and 9 years experience at another church in the area of small groups and spiritual formation, but I had no clue. And so we put our disciple making, or the question was, how do we put disciple making back into the hands of ordinary church members? So we went looking to see if we could find some help, some people that we could learn from. We came across a group called 3DM, And a small group of us from Columbia went through a 2-year training process to help us learn how we could intentionally foster a disciple-making culture here. First, it started with a new metric. We would begin actually counting disciples that were making disciples. In choosing that road, we knew it would be long and slow. It would require, in the words of the late Eugene Peterson, a long obedience in the same direction. It could not be done through a mass program. It would require life-on-life investment in relationships, because real growth only happens at the speed of relationships. What this meant for us, or has meant for us, is that the number of people impacted by our disciple-making efforts after 2 years amounted to 8. But then those 8 took what they had learned and began passing it on to others, and by our 3rd year, that number climbed to 39. And now in our 5th year, those 39 are beginning to invest in others still. Our approach is simple. We start by inviting people to an 8-week experience called Disciple Shift. We tell people it's not a class, but an experience. And these pictures that you see are part of that sort of experience setting. The reason we call it an experience and not a class is because the focus is on the relationships that are formed in the sessions and the practices that people are to incorporate in their lives during the rest of the week. We're very clear that this experience, this 8 weeks, is just an appetizer. If people like what they find, we invite them into a longer 2-year experience centered in someone's living room so that this can actually become their way of life. These are not your typical small groups from the 1990s. Our goal is that people would embrace what we call a Jesus-shaped life, a life that is shaped like Jesus in 3 core areas: upwards in openness and attentiveness to God, inward in commitment to investing in discipling relationships with others, and outward to see the networks and neighborhoods of their lives as their personal mission field. On the next slide, there's one picture of just one of the things that we've done, trying to have people think a little differently about their networks in neighborhoods, is a picture from Halloween. We just, instead of being behind our doors, waiting for kids to come for candy, we went out on the street and had a fire pit and gave them hot dogs and s'mores. It gave us a chance to have conversations with people and engage with people. That's just one example of trying to think, how can our localities be our place that we're sent? The focus throughout is on reproducibility. We try to keep things simple, practical, and memorable. So more than 4 years into this, a little movement has begun. The seeds are taking root. We have a lot to learn, but it is bearing fruit as ordinary Christians start to assume responsibility for the spiritual well-being of others.
Hello, my name is Pastor Matt Overton. I'm the associate here for youth and families, and I'm here to share about the other 2 legs of our vision. I was called here about 8 years ago to help our youth ministry really transition from kind of a standardized American youth ministry to something that was more intergenerational. A lot of churches have changed their focus that direction. We were one of many that chose to move in that way, particularly because most churches around the United States had started to figure out after about, 40, 50 years of youth ministry that shoving a bunch of kids in a room with a youth pastor doesn't necessarily create lifelong pursuit of Christ. And we finally had the data to prove it about 12 to 15 years ago. And so what we had started to realize overall, and this church started to realize, was that actually what tends to shape faith in teenagers is adult relationships, particularly within their family life, and particularly being in worship seemed to matter the most, more than camp, more than mission trips, more than anything else. And so my job in coming here was to see if I could help figure out how we would go from that standardized youth ministry to a youth ministry that was more standard or more oriented around folks' homes. How do we help parents disciple their kids? How do we help build the rhythms of Christian practices from things that engage joy to confession to all of those things within the rhythms of kind of a family life? And we set out to do that and have been working on that diligently the whole time that I've been here. One of the trickiest ones that we actually had, in addition to teaching parents to kind of disciple their kids, and also teaching our congregation its responsibility to its own children rather than just the youth pastor's responsibility, we felt an obligation to create some mentorship. And initially that was a really big struggle. If you had come to me when I was in high school and suggested that I should have a mentor, I would have run screaming into the night. I'm pretty independent, as any of my staff members can confirm for you. And when we went around and looked at churches that had mentorship programs, we found them to be very artificial and awkward. And I certainly felt like if I was reflecting on who I was as a teenager, I would not have gone for them. And so we really sort of let that last goal of creating mentoring, which we thought was so important, we kind of had to let it sit for a while. And quite accidentally, or not accidentally, if we trust the Spirit's work, we ended up staggering into, about 4 years ago, sort of backwards, staggering into a jobs and mentoring program that we created called the Columbia Future Forge, which takes kids now actually from all over our county and not just within our church, but pairs them with a local mentor, generally from our congregation, though there are folks from outside of our church. Puts them in a mentoring relationship with them, and then teaches them very practical kind of life skills and job skills, everything from goal setting to money management to professionalism, conflict resolution, those kinds of things, and then seeks to ask them the larger questions about life, rather than a program that simply says, what are you going to be when you grow up, or where are we going to get you to in terms of college or the next stage of life. We really want them to focus in on who am I going to be when I get there. And I think that's a gospel question. God is more interested, perhaps less interested in what we're doing as to the gracious ways we're going to go about what we're doing as we do it. And so we staggered into this mentoring program that's wonderful. It now has 3 expressions. We have a teenage landscaping company that we run called Motown Teen Lawn Care. We have a drone piloting program that commercially certifies kids as drone pilots. It's an employable skill that we created. And then this fall, we launched a strength training program called Utmost Athletics that runs out of the warehouse right up there, which is an affordable, healthy training program for kids who have been priced out of athletics because we kind of weaponized our athletics industry. And so we have sought to create a model where kids who are athletes and non-athletes can come and set strength goals for themselves, do it in a healthy environment and one that's encouraging. It's been amazing to watch that grow. It's run by a former softball coach, D1 softball coach named Ty Singleton, who's been dreaming about this for 12 years. And once we had this enterprise running, we were like, Ty, we think we can have you, this dream can come, we can do this. And so Ty set that up this summer, and 3.5 weeks into the program, there's over 50 kids from around our county engaged in that program, which is way beyond where I thought we were going to be. And it's created all kinds of really good problems right now that I'm having to deal with, which are great. Half the Clark College baseball team is engaged in that weight room. We've got kids in middle school, a bunch of kids from high school, and the vast majority of them had no previous connection with our church. And it's wonderful. They're starting to do shared meals together, talking about real life issues, and hopefully eventually some of them may want to talk about discipleship. What does faith look like? Who is this Jesus person? We don't know. And we take any kid that'll come into our program. If they're not interested in faith, that's fine with us. We see it as a way to bless our county, as a way to extend the work that we want to do from this place out into the county. And that's how we've gotten out of intergenerational ministry. The funny part about that is it's sort of bled into our identity as a missional church. It's created all sorts of networks out in the community, those programs, where we've realized our congregants have a much larger number of gifts and connectional webs that we didn't even realize were there as ministers until we actually got outside the walls of the church to do this kind of work. That's been amazing to see. But it's also created a culture, I think, at Columbia of experimentation that has given permission for other people in our church to be willing to take risks in their own lives and with their own sense of call to things. We've got a woman that started an arts program that is now starting to go out to lots of local schools to teach arts because a lot of the schools are so focused on STEM that they don't really want to do arts anymore. And she's built that nonprofit from the ground up. We have folks doing small milk programs at their schools. We've kind of said at Columbia, we have a simple ethos. If you can go find 5 friends and a simple calling and get something off the ground, we're happy to support it. We can't necessarily support it financially, but we will be behind you in whatever way we can if you can kind of direct that passion and see if you can make it run. That is overseen by a team of folks whose main job is not to launch programs, it's not to fund things, it's our missional engagement team, and their primary job right now is to help coach people and help them discern what they're called to do. So people come to them with an idea, and they simply sit back and sort of say, okay, let's see if we can help you get this off the ground. It's an idea for how to engage God's kingdom work out in the community. And it's pretty exciting to see all of this happening here. We're really blessed to honestly get to be a part of some of the work that I think God is doing out in our community. and that God has chosen to do through a whole bunch of our congregants, really. It's been amazing. So we're glad you're here. We're super thankful that you're here, and if you have any issues, you're welcome to talk to Geordie, Brian, or I. There's a number of folks with our Columbia name tags. I'm a terrible name tag wearer, so I don't even know where my Columbia one is. I can confess that now. I haven't known for 8 years. And so if you need anything, please let us know, and we're just very glad you're here and that we get to worship together and live together.